Welcome. You're tuned into Scaling Right with me, Mangalam Maloo. Scaling Right is in partnership with the Artha School of Entrepreneurship. This show is about talking to founders about building sustainable businesses and the many roads that lead there. In today's episode, we're going to debunk the many myths that surround the innocuous word scaling. Beyond the glitzy world of unicorns, we'll take you on dirt tracks and small lanes where entrepreneurs have to make tough choices and hard decisions every day about scaling, about investments, about growth. So to chat with me about this, we have today Ft.TN Hari, who, besides co-founding the Artha School of Entrepreneurship, is an influencer, a thought leader in the startup world. He wears multiple hats. He's an angel investor, he's an advisor to VCs, a sounding board to founders, author, and columnist. He's helped shape the scale journeys of 5 high-growth startups until their successful exit at last count. I can't think of a better guest to start this series with. Thank you, Mr. Hari, for joining in.
Thank you, Mangalam.
It's indeed a pleasure.
Same here.
Well, when we talk about growth, when we talk about the journey of entrepreneurship, let's get a little poetic, because I read Robert Frost's lines, which says, poetic lines, 2 roads diverged in the woods.
Yeah.
And I took the one less traveled by, and that is the one that's made all the difference. Every entrepreneur at every given point in time is always at a bit of a fork stop, thinking of where to go. What road do you think people should always take? The one less traveled, or the one which is traveled by a lot of people is safe? How do you suggest one should go about it?
So I think in the last 15 years, what has happened is that certain beliefs have developed and taken shape in terms of what entrepreneurship is all about. For instance, it's believed that, all entrepreneurship should be VC funded.
Right.
And there is no entrepreneurship without venture capital money. So I think this is a myth pretty much created by, the venture capitalists and the new age entrepreneurs. But I think, there are several startups in India which don't really need VC money. The truth is that very few companies can even digest VC money and use it in a very sustainable way. Less than 1% of startups can actually benefit from VC money. So unless you can scale your business exponentially, unless you have a very disruptive solution, and the solution is very different from the existing solution, VC money is not going to be of help. So I think founders need to really begin to figure out what kind of capital works best for them, what kind of model works best for them, and their own aspirations are important as well. So for instance, some founders may not even want to scale their business. They may not even want to run a large institution. They might want to just be a serial entrepreneur, just build one small company after the other, find somebody who buys them, and then can run them well. So I think every founder needs to figure out what is relevant for them, what suits their own interest, what kind of a company they want to build, what kind of space they want to be in. And all of these together, I think, would determine the kind of scale journey that a founder would want to go down.
That's rather insightful. The question is here, are we at fault for celebrating unicorns, for celebrating soonicorns, and celebrating the valuation of companies as against the value that they've created? How does one go about, celebrating everyone else in their entrepreneur journey who are doing well too? But we're just celebrating a bunch of them who've perhaps gotten funded and the valuation number, and a lot of them who are bootstrapped are doing equally good.
Yeah, I think that's the nature of human psychology, which is that a small number of people get all the attention, disproportionate attention. You find that in book sales as well. A few books sell really well, most of the books don't sell at all. And you see that in cities as well. New York, you have London, you have Bangalore, Mumbai. Large cities, but then most of the cities are very small and unknown. So I think the same is true for celebrities in the startup world as well, which is that some people get all the attention, but I don't think there's anything wrong with that, because that's the way human psychology operates. Media wants to do that. Audience wants to read about a few celebrated folks. But I think those who are involved in developing the ecosystem, in nurturing the ecosystem, should really understand that a lot of employment is created not by the unicorns, but by the much smaller enterprises. The micro, small, medium enterprises which offer maybe 50 to 100 jobs. These in large numbers are going to create employment for the country. So I think it's important for policymakers to understand this, roll out the red carpets for micro entrepreneurs, micro women entrepreneurs, have a cabinet minister in every state which treats them really well. So I think that is very critical. But I'm not really opposed to, unicorns hogging the limelight, because that's the way the VCs build businesses, and that's the part of the journey itself.
You said a lot of VC money cannot be digested by a bunch of entrepreneurs as well. Could you give us a sense of what are the decisions an entrepreneur should think of before looking to raise capital?
Right.
And whether it should be debt, VC money, or they should just continue to put in their own bootstrap funds, etc.
Right. So I think, what the most important question that a founder needs to ask is, what is the business nature of the business and what's the nature of the business model? Some businesses are cash guzzlers. That means, even though there is a good product market fit, you need to give out discounts, cashbacks to induce customers to try out your product. So before, adoption on a large scale, some businesses need a lot of cash burn. For example, taxi aggregation needed a lot of cash burn. E-commerce needed a lot of cash burn. So businesses that, need a lot of cash burn to get customer adoption on a large scale, those kind of businesses can't do without VC money. But those are just a handful in terms of numbers. They would be pretty much a fraction of a percentage of all the startups in the country. And many of the startups which are building sustainable businesses, which are generating profits, which are generating cash pretty much right from the day go or right from 3-4 months of inception, those kind of startups really don't need VC money. They can in fact borrow. For example, why should they even dilute? They can just borrow from the, as money as debt and then pay out interest and then run their business very profitably. Today, for example, if you look at NSE, almost majority of the companies, of the 1,300 odd companies on NSE, the promoters hold almost 40 to 45% of the stake.
Yeah.
So I think these businesses have built over a period of time profitably, sustainably, and therefore they don't need that kind of VC money. So unless you can grow exponentially, unless you really need to burn a lot of cash to induce customers to try your products, you really don't need VC money.
So let's flip the question. What are the top 3 things that you should not be borrowing VC money for or raising VC money for?
Yeah, I would say that you should not be raising VC money for acquiring customers mostly, but there are exceptions. I mean, there are exceptions to everything. And there are successful startups which have scaled, which have acquired customers and which have acquired good customers. But mostly, I would say using capital to acquire customers is a definite way of getting the wrong kind of customers. So you will get customers who will try you out because you're burning money, but then they will be the first to drop off, for example, when you increase prices and want to become sustainable. Look at Ola, for example. I had predicted a couple of years back, 2019, that Ola is a company which is highly valued. And there are companies like Ola, highly valued companies which have got a huge customer base, highly discounted prices. But the day they want to become profitable, they can become profitable because the levers are very clear. So it's about increasing the prices, reducing driver discounts. But the moment they begin to do this, many of the customers actually drop off. The market shrinks, the valuation shrinks. So I think acquiring customers using capital certainly is not the right thing to do. And, sometimes several startups also, fall for the trap that customer adoption equals product market fit.
Yeah.
So customer adoption is not product market fit. Product market fit is customer adoption at a price point that makes you profitable. Just mere customer adoption is not, product market fit. So a lot of capital gets you to, falsely believe that you've got your product market fit when you haven't actually got it.
That's an interesting one. And, what's also interesting now is that the rise that we're seeing beyond the metros. There are multiple reports and back of the envelope calculations suggest that the next $1.7 trillion opportunity in India comes from beyond the top 8 cities.
Yes.
Entrepreneurs who are coming by from the cities beyond the metros, the top 8, do you think they stand a better chance, or is it just an even scale for everyone right now?
I would say that the top 100 million consumers in the socio-economic pyramid, their needs have pretty much been addressed. I think the markets there are saturated. Their problems have largely been solved. So incrementally solving those problems is not a great opportunity for new entrepreneurs. So I think the next 400 million consumers in the socio-economic pyramid provide an amazing opportunity. So founders and entrepreneurs who can solve their problems are those who deeply understand their pain points. And since many of them live in tier 2, tier 3 towns of India, founders who've also lived and grown up in these towns deeply understand the problems of these founders, of the people living in those towns. So they are best placed, I would say, to solve their problems.
Will there be any difference in the unit economics of customers from the top 100 million customers versus the next 400 million because of the price sensitive nature of those customers itself? So how do you then create that sort of value?
Absolutely. It's a very interesting question because it's not very easy to build, profitable businesses solving problems of the next 400 million Indians. Building profitable businesses by solving the problems of the 100 million Indians is very easy because they are willing to pay for inconvenience, are being taken away. They are money rich, time poor, whereas middle India is money poor and time rich. So it's not very easy to solve their problems. So, and at the point about unit economics that you mentioned, so customer acquisition cost tends to be very high. Distribution cost tends to be very high because the market is very, very broken. And it's not a high volume, low margin market as people might think. It's a low margin, low volume markets which have all been spread across the country, divided on regions, divided on local preferences, divided on demographics. So creating economies of scale for these disaggregated markets is not very easy. So customer acquisition cost has to be low, distribution costs have to be low if you need to build profitable businesses there.
Can you give us an example of someone who's managed to do that?
Yeah, several companies are doing this. Dehat, for example, is a agri-tech company that's doing this. Razorpay has done this in a beautiful way. So many companies are attempting to do this. So, for example, Dehat, they don't deliver, all the agri inputs to the farmer doorstep. In top India, urban India, I think home delivery is a convenience people pay for. But fertilizers and other inputs, farmers are prepared to walk 5 kilometers, cycle 10 kilometers to pick up the agri inputs. They don't want it to be delivered at home because they have all the time in the world. And Dehat is building a very sound business. I think these guys have grown up in small towns in Bihar and have lived in rural areas, lived in farming communities. So they deeply understand the pain points of farmers. So as I said, in middle India, you just need to deeply understand the problems that these guys are facing to be able to create some meaningful solutions at the right price points.
That's a fascinating example. Do you have any others? I mean, what unites some of these small town entrepreneurs in their vision for scale?
So I think, small town entrepreneurs in some ways, I would say India's, film industry and cricket really mirror the socio-economic fabric of the country. So if you look at IPL games, for example, right, many of the best players are from tier 3, tier 4 towns, probably unknown, right? They can't speak in English, very confident in their own skin. The sudden confidence you find in the last 10 years, particularly, and starting from 2000, I would say, but last 10 years particularly, India has found a newfound confidence. And this confidence is visible in every part of India. So I think the entrepreneurs who come from there also are reasonably confident that they understand the problems of the people that they're working with and dealing with. And there is a confidence that they can build businesses around those. And fortunately, many things have come together in the last 10 years. For example, smartphones, broadband, UPI, all these things have come together to be able to create sachets. In metaphorically speaking, you can make small payments, for example. You don't have to, go to a bank to make payments. You can make small payments. So a lot of these things you can transact from tier 3, tier 4 towns. So a lot of things have come together technologically, I think, to reduce distribution costs, to reduce the cost of customer acquisition, to reduce the cost of service. So many things have suddenly made the problems of middle India worth solving economically.
Well, I usually think of the Indian team, the cricket team, as a microcosm of India itself. Back
absolutely.
in the day, we had most of the players coming in. I remember the 1983 team had nearly 8 players coming in from the top 8 cities.
Yes.
And the 2011 team that won the World Cup had only 3 or 4 people coming in from the metros. And now, as we speak, there are just about 2 people I remember coming in from the top 8 cities of the country itself. And add to that, we have the women's cricket team also, which is talking about the increasing participation of both the genders in not just cricket, but as the Indian community grows as well.
Yeah, I've been following cricket for several decades, and earlier days it used to be Mumbai and Delhi, Hyderabad and Bangalore that used to win the Ranji Trophy majority of the times.
Yes.
In the last several years, it's Rajasthan, Uttar Pradesh which are winning the Ranji Trophy. That itself is a great indication.
That's a great indication and a great moment for India as well, because if all of India's needs are taken care of, we wouldn't probably want to, export outside, or we wouldn't be dependent on global growth, which in any case is just about 20% of our overall GDP. We're talking about a generation where patience is limited, time is limited, attention span is limited. And compare that to the brands that have endured, and talk about nostalgia. We have the likes of Parle G, there's Asian Paints, there's Britannia, there's what have yous. In a generation which does not care so much about legacy and honestly does not have the time or attention, how do you create brands that last?
I don't have a great answer for this, but I think, the best things take time to create. Those things that really last are those that really are solving a genuine problem, addressing a real customer pain point, and built very slowly. Those things that create a lot of noise, hype, don't really last long. So I think, it's always helpful to build brands quietly, slowly, in a very sustainable manner, be at it, figure out what the consumer needs are, reduce your distribution costs, improve your operating efficiencies continuously, not being, on camera, not being visible. The best founders are those who nobody knows about. And that's the reason why I don't read many biographies, is because the best founders are those who are quietly building businesses and nobody writes about them. So all the names that you took, who built Asian Paints, who was the founder of Asian Paints, who knows, who did the, glucose biscuits that you're talking about, who knows, nobody knows, because they have been quietly built.
So how do you then motivate and perhaps nurture entrepreneurs to go down that path? Because they are also of the generation which believes that speed and scale go hand in hand, and then they do a lot of missteps in that. I mean, how do you motivate them then?
So what we do at Artha, ultimately you can do what you can do, right?
Yeah.
So at Artha School for Entrepreneurship, this is the message we try and communicate, at every forum that we are in. In fact, we just want to try and change the narrative in the country in a small way, whatever we can, which is that, great businesses take time to build. You don't need to scale them, very rapidly, because scaling businesses rapidly surely involves doing some things which are wrong.
Yeah.
It could be, about getting the wrong customers. It could be about breakages in governance, taking shortcuts on culture, doing many wrong things. And we are seeing some of those, the fallouts of some of those things already happening. So the thing that we advocate to everyone is that just stay on building a sustainable, profitable business. Do it quietly. And, you don't have to be a unicorn at all. You could build a company that is just 100 crores to 1,000 crores in terms of revenue, which is about $15 million to $150 million, and list it on, one of the exchanges, and be a profitable business. Own 30-40% of that company, and you don't need to become a unicorn. You will make far more money than owning 3% in a unicorn.
It's easier said than done, right? I mean, how do you shift the temperament of so many young Indians?
The reality is that most Indians don't care about building unicorns. That's the reality, because just look at the number of businesses that are there in India. 6.5 crore businesses, right? How many unicorns are there? 100 unicorns. Of them, how many have collapsed already? So the reality is that we were there in Ahmedabad recently, for example. Many of the founders there we met are building some very good businesses. None of them are going to be VC fundable businesses at all, because they're not going to scale exponentially. But all of them are solving wonderful local problems. And many of them are building products which probably exist. They're playing in the red ocean space. They're not playing the blue ocean space. So I think many founders in India, family businesses, non-family businesses, are people who are confidently trying out small things. It's not that you can build a taxi aggregation business every other day. It's not possible to do that.
So let's, talk about cricket once again. What's also notable is that not a lot of players are emerging on the test scene. How do you, get new test match players? How do you get new, strong, sustainable, unit economics positive, bootstrap businesses growing at the rate of GDP a little faster than that and growing consistently as against just hitting a few sixes in a couple of overs?
Yeah, that's a tough question to answer. I think we need the right kind of role models. So I think, role models play a very important role in bringing about any kind of mindset change. So if you want more and more women, for example, to participate in the workforce, take on leadership roles, you need some amazing role models for women. The same thing is true for entrepreneurs as well. So currently the media has created a set of role models and kept on playing the same record again and again and again. So I think the government needs to identify the right kind of role models. So the government also, for a period of time, just fell into the same trap, which is talking about the number of unicorns that India produced. I think they should talk about the number of entrepreneurs who create the maximum number of jobs, bring them to the forefront, get pictures of them with the Prime Minister. So I think, if you can just create the right kind of role models, all good things are very difficult to pull off. The reality is that, right? All the good things take time and are difficult. People always want to take the shortcuts. So the difficult path is really to create role models out of these entrepreneurs who are building these small businesses, who are giving lots of employment jobs, call them out, roll out the red carpet for them, make business easy to do business for them, reduce all the bureaucracy that's put in their way. We roll the red carpet for companies like Apple, which are coming. How many jobs they create? They create 5,000 jobs. Where it's nothing at all. There are 15 million Indians entering employable age every year, and you need 15 million jobs. They will never be created by Apple, which are capital intensive. So I think we should roll out the red carpet for these smaller entrepreneurs, make them our heroes, talk about them.
We must. Let's talk about your own entrepreneurial journey as well, rather your own investment journey. What have you learned from some of the most successful investments that you've made, and what have failures taught you?
So investments, I would say a couple of things. One is, I think, I ideas are something that are very easy to come by. Put 3 smart people into a room for 24 hours and they'll come up with the world's best ideas. I think what makes a difference between a great idea well executed and a great idea that just falls along the way is the founder behind that idea. So I think one lesson learned is that the founder really, really matters a lot. Don't spend too much time in an idea. The idea is important, but then the founder behind that idea is far more important. So ability of the founder, in terms of resilience, in terms of being able to be a magnet for talent, willingness to go through adversity, bounce back, all of those traits are the most important thing, is what I've discovered in whatever little investing we have done.
Well, back the jockey and not the horse is what you're saying, is it?
Yes, in some ways you can call that.
Well, that is also at a divergence to what some investment gurus, so to say, think. Say someone like a Charlie Munger, who says that buy a business which even an idiot can run, because someday an idiot will indeed run that business.
Correct.
What are your thoughts on that?
No, I agree with that. So in the sense that I'm not sure if we are saying very different things, because I think anybody can run a business. So I was talking to you about a level 5 leader, right? Which is that you just need to hunker down and be able to do the boring stuff every day. For example, if you're building an amazing grocery business, right? You just have to hunker down and scrape the bottom of the barrel, remove all the costs, all possible efficiencies. So you just have to run it well. So it's I think what he also says is that we all classify all ideas into 3 categories: invest, don't invest, and we don't understand the idea.
Yeah.
So I think that's something that I have also, I actually subscribe to a lot, which is that there are some businesses that you don't get it. In the first 10 minutes, if you don't really understand how they're making their money, what problem are they solving, then that's not a business worth investing. Crypto, for example, I just never understood right from day one, even during the days of hype, like how are they ever going to make money? Is it ever going to be legal? What are the regulatory questions? So there's no question of investing in business you don't understand. So I think, I listen to ideas from a wide range of domains. So I say I'm a layman. I'm not, an expert in any area. So the founder can't explain to me in 5 minutes how you make money, what's the idea, what problem are you solving. Then there's no way to invest in that. So the idea should be understandable. How they make money should be, but some of the ideas are so convoluted in terms of, Can
you give me an example?
There's so many examples of convoluted ideas. Let me not take names because it's not
you can
fair.
give us a rough.
So for example, one big convoluted idea is somehow get users onto your platform.
Yeah.
And we'll monetize the users. That is bullshit. If you can't make money out of your core business, saying that someday you will be able to monetize your users by selling them other things is never going to work. The core problem that you're solving, the users should be willing to pay you for that. If they come to you for free and you say, we'll figure out, those models are very limited. Facebook has successfully done that by selling ads, but then very few others will be able to do that. Paytm are unlikely to succeed. Many of the people who claim that we have a user base, we are going after users, we'll make money somehow, those kind of things never, appeal to me at all.
Well, they say if the product is for free, then you are the product.
You are the product, yes.
So there are 2 kinds of errors in investment decisions or any sort of decision making.
Yeah.
There's type 1 error, there's type 2 error.
Yeah.
The type 1 error is where, you look over something which is good, and type 2 error is you actually take something which is bad.
Yeah.
Which according to you is the worst error?
It's okay to overlook a good idea, but it's not okay to invest in a bad idea.
And for entrepreneurs who are going into their entrepreneurial journey right now, the nervousness that they have, how do you, tell them to, how do you probably assure them that, okay, if your idea is good, you will need to just keep consistently doing the things over and over and over again? I mean, how do you build that gumption?
So I think I'll just look at it from 2 elements. One is that the reality is that, in tier 2, in tier 3 cities in India, we're saying everybody is taking up entrepreneurship. Many people are taking up entrepreneurship. Yeah. One is a constraint that there are not enough jobs. It's not that many of them actually love entrepreneurship. They are taking up entrepreneurship because they have no access to jobs. India needs 12 to 15 million jobs to be created every year, and no way these kind of jobs are going to get created. So these folks don't have any choice but to try entrepreneurship of some kind. Now, in terms of the other part, which is telling people to hunker down and keep doing the good stuff, is a message that we try and keep reinforcing time and again with some stories and with some real life examples. And This is what we keep saying. And I think people get it. So, the penny drops when there is some reality hits you, right? Reality hit us when the tap was turned off in 23, right? When the tap was turned off, you saw unicorns collapsing, Baiju from 22 to almost bankruptcy. So, that's when I think, folks are beginning to realize that, the sheen is just wearing away. We were just carried away by the wrong kind of things. Or some would say we were always saying that they are not going to succeed. Many people will say many things, but I think the penny is dropping gradually.
Well, it's only when the tide runs out that you know who's swimming naked.
Yes.
Finally, before we wrap up on this conversation, actually I can keep speaking to you about this, but there is a constraint on users or listeners' attentions as we speak about it. The Artha School of Entrepreneurship. What really drove you to start that, and what do you think has been the biggest achievement so far? What are you gunning for in the next few years?
So some of us, have been part of the scale journey of multiple startups. I've been part of 5, successful exits and growth. And other participants who are part of this School for Entrepreneurship also have seen similar journeys. And at some point of time, we decided to come together and felt, we watched this movie multiple times. And there are several young founders who are trying and building companies. And we've learned several lessons. Why should they repeat the mistakes that we've done? And over the years, we've developed some insights, both individually and collectively. And we thought if we can share them in a very structured manner, then several founders will stand to gain. So our vision is really in terms of, being probably one of the most practical and most effective, schools for entrepreneurship, because entrepreneurs don't like, theory. They don't like an academic approach. They ask you very, very hard questions. And I think we are well equipped to answer those hard questions because we are seen those journeys multiple times. And our mission is to, in fact, see if we can impact the socio-economic, situation in India by helping people think about entrepreneurship the right way, helping small entrepreneurs create several jobs and improve the socio-economic conditions.
You whetted my appetite by saying hard questions. Now I have to probe you. What were some of those hard questions? Because I'm sure a lot of people who are listening might have those questions right now as well. They'll get an answer to this through this.
Yeah. So for example, even small things like culture, right? Culture is something that everybody in some ways understands a bit. Everybody talks about it a bit, but nobody understands it well enough to be able to make it work for them. Like people understand operations, they understand strategy, they understand marketing deeply. They understand, they understand what is the difference between good marketing, bad marketing, all FAQs. But culture is something people even 20 years down the road in their careers don't actually get what culture really means. They just don't deeply get it. So founders are not prepared to listen to, for example, a theoretical, elucidation of what culture is all about theory. They just want you to illustrate with real examples what it means, what are the do's and don'ts. And they will ask you all the questions about culture, and you have to have a very cogent set of answers that make sense for them.
Is there something that particularly stands out in Indian entrepreneurs versus global entrepreneurs, which needs a little more work on as against their global counterparts?
I would say, I'm not sure about entrepreneurs, but I would say just based on the demographic profile of the two countries, let's take US and let's take India. India is a much younger nation. So most founders are also going to be very young, and most tech teams are also very young. So the people who are architecting systems in India, for example, could be 25 to 30 years old. Whereas those who are architecting systems in the US, startups, could be 35 to 40 years old. And the 10 years is a big advantage because they have seen things. So they're able to plan for the future. They don't architect it in a manner that things begin to break as the journey scales. Whereas in India, I think it's almost living hand to mouth in technology and incurring a lot of technical debt, which is you launch things very quickly, but don't architect it correctly, as a result of which things break when you scale, and then you need to redo the whole thing again and again. So I think sometimes the journey can be a little difficult in India because things may not get planned as well, and that's largely because of the age of the founders. They've not yet seen many things. So I think the age, the 10-year gap, I think, is what makes a difference.
We are a nation of frugal innovation, as well as they call it jugaad. But processes are kicking in. So let's end on an optimistic note. You said the founders in India mostly are young. What is it that stands out in India apart from the youth factor that gives us the right to win, so to say, in the world of entrepreneurship?
I think Indians of late, Indian entrepreneurs are ambitious. they think that they can solve a lot of problems. So, for instance, I think till, Infosys, all the services companies, they solved the problems of the Western world, high labor costs. But starting with Flipkart, Sachin and Binny Bansal tried to solve an Indian problem. And they inspired hundreds, if not thousands of founders to just go out and solve India's wicked problems. Prior to that, India's problems seemed so wicked that I thought in my lifetime I'll never see many of these problems getting solved. But then I can see the founders, having believed that they are solvable and going out and solving them. Very inspiring to talk to these young founders.
Wonderful. Thank you. This was great conversation, Hari. This was indeed, the tone setter for all the other conversations to come ahead in this series itself.
Thank you, Mangalam. Thoroughly enjoyed it.
Well, just like a game of snakes and ladders, the entrepreneurship journey is filled with many such unpredictable highs and lows. The real lesson in scaling is that in each of our lives, the start and finish may actually be different for our own respective board games itself. So why sing the same scaling tune? Be sure to tune into the next episode where we'll discuss the ambitions of a founder and the dilemmas they face. Until then, it's me, Mangalam Maloo, signing off.
IVM.